They tied her high in the gym. She slashed the rope, but the real story began. After the hands that seize Sarah Chen aren't clumsy or hesitant. They move with practiced coordination, as if this choreography has been rehearsed. As thick climbing rope cuts into her wrists and she's hauled toward the gymnasium ceiling, Sarah's initial response surprises everyone, including herself. Rather than screaming or pleading, she methodically evaluates the rope's tension, measures the distance to the floor below, and quietly extracts a small folding knife from her jacket pocket. One swift, precise cut later, she drops to the ground in a controlled roll that no ordinary student should know how to execute. The gymnasium falls into stunned silence. Marcus Blackwood's gang stares in disbelief. Sarah brushes dust from her clothes, meets each of their eyes with calm assessment, and walks deliberately toward the exit. She doesn't hurry, doesn't break down, doesn't even appear shaken. At the doorway, she pauses and speaks quietly. Wrong choice of target. Sarah Chen has navigated Riverside Prep for 3 years, learning every corridor of this exclusive Massachusetts academy, every blind spot in surveillance coverage, every instructor's patterns and habits. What she hadn't anticipated was Marcus Blackwood's crew possessing the same intimate knowledge of the building's vulnerabilities. The attack occurs during what should be monitored study period, but Mrs. Thompson has been mysteriously called away on urgent business. The security cameras that typically watch this area display nothing but static interference. Marcus Blackwood isn't simply another school bully. He's the heir apparent to Riverside Prep's social throne. His father controls the board of trustees. His mother heads the parent fundraising organization. Alexa Whitmore, his second-in-command, descends from 3 generations of state legislators who've wielded political influence like a family heirloom. Diana Blackwood, ironically sharing Marcus's surname, despite being Principal Crawford's daughter, reigns as the school's unofficial social queen. Trevor Hartwell completes their circle as the star quarterback, whose family owns significant commercial property throughout the region. They corner Sarah during what appears to be a routine trip to retrieve forgotten textbooks from her gymnasium locker. The assault unfolds with swift, coordinated precision that seems disturbingly professional for teenagers. They've clearly practiced this scenario extensively. Time someone taught you your proper place, scholarship girl, Marcus sneers as they drag her toward the climbing equipment. But Sarah's reaction defies typical victim behavior. She doesn't panic or beg. She doesn't even seem particularly startled. As they secure the rope around her wrists, she appears to be memorizing faces, calculating probabilities, strategizing rather than surrendering to fear. When she produces the tactical blade, a tool that shouldn't exist in any student's possession, and severs her restraints with surgical precision, the power dynamic shifts instantly. The landing she executes requires extensive training. The way she distributes impact across her body, absorbs momentum through controlled movement, and springs effortlessly to her feet suggests someone with serious martial arts or gymnastics background. Marcus's crew exchanges nervous glances. This development wasn't in their script. Sarah's parting words aren't delivered as a threat. They carry the measured confidence of someone who's witnessed real violence and emerged victorious. As Sarah exits the gymnasium, she passes her closest friend, Jessica Martinez, who's been searching for her throughout the building. Jessica notices the rope burns on Sarah's wrists, the slight tear in her gym clothes, the way her usually gentle friend now moves with predatory awareness. "Sarah, what happened?" Jessica whispers urgently, but Sarah simply shakes her head and continues walking. The following class period passes in tense quiet. Marcus's group keeps stealing glances at Sarah, who appears completely absorbed in taking notes about European history. Professor Williams lectures about power structures in medieval society, unaware that his classroom has become the stage for a very different kind of power struggle. Sarah raises her hand to contribute thoughtful responses about social hierarchies and resistance movements. Nothing in her demeanor suggests she was suspended from gymnasium rafters 20 minutes earlier. But Jessica observes details others miss, the way Sarah's pen never wavers despite the rope burns on her wrists, how she sits slightly forward as if prepared to move quickly, the systematic way she surveys the classroom every few minutes. Most telling is Sarah's complete absence of fear. Students who've been targeted by Marcus's crew typically spend weeks looking over their shoulders, but Sarah seems almost expectant. Colonel Robert Chen sits in his home office reviewing classified documents that have nothing to do with his official position at the regional defense contractor. His military bearing remains razor-sharp despite 12 years since active duty. His presence commands attention without effort. When Sarah enters and closes the door behind her, he looks up from papers marked with security classifications that don't officially exist. "Eventful day at school?" he asks, noting the barely visible marks on her wrists that most parents would overlook entirely. Colonel Chen isn't most parents. He's trained to read violence on human bodies, to recognize the aftermath of confrontation. Sarah sits across from him, her posture revealing everything. Straight spine, alert eyes, controlled breathing of someone processing combat stress. "They made an error," Sarah says simply. Her voice carries none of the tremor expected from a traumatized teenager. Instead, there's something calculating in her tone that makes her father study her more carefully. "They assumed I was helpless." Robert closes his files and gives Sarah his complete attention. In their household, certain conversations require absolute focus. "Tell me what happened." His voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to debriefing soldiers after dangerous missions. Sarah recounts the gymnasium incident with tactical precision, positions, timing, escape routes, threat assessment. She speaks like someone reporting to a commanding officer, not a daughter seeking comfort from her father. "The rope was 3/4-inch climbing rope, properly rated for human weight," Sarah continues methodically. "They secured it with a bowline knot. Someone taught them proper technique. The gymnasium cameras were disabled exactly 14 minutes before they approached me. Mrs. Thompson received a fabricated emergency call requiring her immediate presence in the main office." Robert's expression darkens. This level of coordination suggests adult involvement, institutional complicity. "Who else knows about the blade?" he asks, though he already suspects the answer. Sarah's tactical training began years earlier under his supervision. He taught both his daughters to be prepared for situations most parents never imagine their children facing. "No one observed me cutting the rope," Sarah replies. "They were focused on maintaining their positions, watching for witnesses. I concealed the blade during approach and deployed it from a hidden carry position." She pauses, then adds with disturbing calm, "I could have inflicted much more damage if necessary." Colonel Chen has spent decades evaluating threats and assessing capabilities. He recognizes the voice of someone who's crossed psychological barriers most civilians never approach. "Sarah," he says carefully, "this isn't a combat zone. These are just privileged kids acting out." "No, Dad," Sarah responds, and something in her tone makes Robert realize his daughter has discovered something he hasn't. "This is systematic. They knew exactly when and where to strike, how to avoid detection, how to ensure no accountability. Someone is coordinating this." The telephone rings. Robert glances at the caller identification and recognizes a number from his classified work. He answers with military brevity, "Chen." The voice on the other end speaks rapidly in code words that make Robert's expression change completely. After hanging up, he looks at Sarah with new understanding. "Pack an overnight bag," he says quietly. "You're going to stay with your sister this weekend." Victoria Chen completes her morning workout in the gymnasium that's become her sanctuary since transferring to Hamilton Academy 8 months ago. Her exile from Riverside Prep led to opportunities she never expected. The parallel bars, balance beam, and floor exercise equipment here surpass anything Riverside offers, and coach Linda Davis, who followed Victoria when she transferred, has helped rebuild both her gymnastics career and her confidence. Victoria's morning routine involves 2 hours of intense training, followed by tactical self-defense practice in the studio adjacent to the main gymnasium. The muscle memory of violence remains sharp, despite months of focusing on competitive gymnastics. Certain skills, once acquired, never fully disappear. She's perfecting a particularly complex floor routine when her phone buzzes with an incoming call from Sarah. "They made their move," Sarah says without preamble. Identical twins develop communication shortcuts that bypass normal social conventions. Victoria stops mid-routine and sits on the gymnasium floor, giving her sister complete attention. Sarah's voice carries stress markers that Victoria recognizes from their childhood. Elevated pitch, clipped syllables, the breathing pattern that indicates controlled fear. As Sarah recounts yesterday's gymnasium incident, Victoria's expression shifts from concern to cold fury. She knows Marcus Blackwood's crew intimately. They were the ones who orchestrated her downfall at Riverside. Though the official records tell a sanitized version of events, the truth involves 3 male students attempting to corner a female gymnast in an empty classroom and discovering too late that their intended victim possessed skills they couldn't anticipate. "They used identical tactics," Victoria says when Sarah finishes her account. "Disabled surveillance, eliminated witnesses, coordinated timing. Someone taught them this approach." She pauses, processing implications. "Dad's sending you here, isn't he?" "He received a call last night," Sarah confirms. "Official business. He wants me away from Riverside until he can assess the threat level." There's something else in Sarah's voice. Anticipation mixed with determination that Victoria recognizes from their shared childhood. "I think it's time," Sarah says. Victoria understands immediately. They've discussed this scenario many times over the past 8 months. 2 identical twins. One attending the school where the harassment originates, one safely distant but possessing skills the harassers don't know exist. They've rehearsed identity switches since elementary school, first as harmless twin pranks, later as tactical exercises under their father's guidance. "Are you certain about this?" Victoria asks, though she already knows Sarah's answer. "Once we start, there's no backing down. Everyone will know something changed." "They already crossed the line," Sarah replies with finality. "They brought rope, Victoria. They plan to hurt me seriously. Dad says there's institutional involvement, adults helping them avoid consequences." Her voice drops to a whisper. "I can't return there as the same person. They'll escalate until someone gets seriously injured." Victoria stands and walks to her gym bag, retrieving items she hasn't needed for months. Tactical gear, disguised as normal school supplies, documents with Sarah's identity information, detailed floor plans of Riverside Prep she's memorized, despite never planning to return. The preparation feels familiar, like muscle memory returning after long dormancy. Coach Davis enters the gymnasium as Victoria concludes her phone conversation. The older woman possesses intuition about her athletes that borders on supernatural. "Emergency at home?" she asks, noting Victoria's tense posture and the way she's organizing her equipment with military precision. "My sister needs help," Victoria says simply. Coach Davis taught both Chen's sisters before Victoria's forced transfer. She knows their family history, their father's military background, the circumstances that led to Victoria's explosive departure from Riverside. More importantly, she understands that some situations require solutions the educational system can't provide. "Take the time you need," Coach Davis says quietly. And Victoria, She waits until the young woman meets her eyes. Some lessons can only be taught once. Make sure they learn completely. Sarah Chen walks through Riverside's front entrance for what everyone believes is another ordinary Monday morning. Only a few people know that the young woman entering the building possesses capabilities her identical sister lacks. Victoria Chen has spent 8 months rebuilding herself at Hamilton Academy, transforming from an angry exile into something far more dangerous, a tactical thinker with nothing left to lose. The switch occurred Sunday evening during a carefully orchestrated family dinner. Colonel Chen briefed both daughters on operational security, contingency planning, and the importance of maintaining Sarah's academic schedule while Victoria conducted her investigation. The plan requires precision timing. Sarah will remain safely at Hamilton Academy, while Victoria navigates Riverside's social minefield. Victoria carries Sarah's backpack, knows her sister's class schedule by heart, and has studied video calls with Jessica Martinez to perfect Sarah's mannerisms and speech patterns. The transformation goes deeper than surface mimicry. Victoria must become someone who appears vulnerable while remaining perpetually ready for violence. It's perhaps the most challenging performance of her life. Jessica Martinez approaches during the transition between first and second period, her expression worried and protective. "How are you feeling today?" she asks, searching Victoria's face for signs of trauma from Friday's gymnasium incident. Jessica possesses the loyalty of someone who's witnessed her friend's gentleness, kindness, and complete lack of aggressive tendencies. "Different," Victoria responds honestly, though Jessica interprets this as emotional processing rather than literal truth. "I keep thinking about what happened, about why they chose me specifically. This isn't deception. Victoria has spent months analyzing the systematic targeting that led to her expulsion, the coordinated effort to silence her complaints about harassment." As they walk toward European history class, Victoria notices details Sarah might miss. The way certain students avoid eye contact, whispered conversations that stop when she approaches, the subtle territorial markers that indicate Marcus's crew maintains influence throughout the school. More troubling is the way faculty members react to her presence. Several teachers who should show concern about Friday's incident instead seem nervous, almost guilty. Professor Williams begins class with a discussion of power dynamics in Renaissance society, unconsciously providing perfect commentary on Riverside's social structure. Victoria participates in discussion with Sarah's typical thoughtfulness, but her responses carry undertones that make classmates pay closer attention when she analyzes Machiavellian manipulation tactics. Several students shift uncomfortably in their seats. Marcus Blackwood sits 3 rows back, watching Victoria with the focused attention of someone reassessing a previously dismissed threat. Something in Sarah's demeanor has changed since Friday. She carries herself differently, speaks with subtle confidence that wasn't present before. Marcus's crew exchanges glances. They're beginning to suspect their gymnasium demonstration didn't achieve the intended intimidation effect. During the transition to third period, Victoria deliberately takes a route past Marcus's usual hallway territory. She wants to observe their reaction patterns, test their coordination, determine how much adult supervision they actually receive. The encounter happens near the science wing, where camera coverage has convenient blind spots that someone clearly mapped in advance. "Feeling better after your little gymnastics demonstration?" Marcus asks, stepping into Victoria's path with practiced casualness. His crew arranges itself in formation that blocks escape routes while appearing coincidental to passing teachers. "We were worried you might have hurt yourself." Victoria studies Marcus's face and recognizes something she missed during her previous confrontations with him: genuine surprise mixed with growing unease. Friday's incident didn't follow his script. Sarah's tactical response and calm departure created variables he wasn't prepared to handle. Now he's fishing for information, trying to determine if his intended victim possesses resources he didn't anticipate. "I'm fine," Victoria responds with Sarah's characteristic softness, but her posture shifts almost imperceptibly into a defensive stance that Marcus's subconscious registers as threat potential. "Thank you for your concern." The words carry layered meaning, acknowledgement of his false solicitude, combined with subtle warning that she's no longer naive about his intentions. Alexa Whitmore steps closer, invading personal space in a dominance display that works on most Riverside students. She doesn't realize she's dealing with someone who's been trained to respond to physical aggression with overwhelming force. "We should probably have a longer conversation sometime soon," she suggests, with the entitlement of someone accustomed to intimidating without consequences. "That can be arranged," Victoria replies quietly, and something in her tone makes Marcus's entire crew step back involuntarily. The response doesn't sound like Sarah Chen. It carries the measured calm of someone who's calculated odds and decided they're acceptable. "Whenever you're ready." The confrontation ends when Mr. Peterson, the chemistry teacher, approaches with questions about weekend homework. Marcus's crew disperses with reluctant efficiency that suggests they've practiced this evasion technique. But as Victoria continues toward her locker, she notices Marcus lingering, studying her with the intensity of someone who's beginning to realize his assumptions might be dangerously incorrect. Kevin Thompson appears beside Victoria's locker as she retrieves textbooks for fourth period. His approach demonstrates the nervous energy of someone carrying important information he's afraid to share. Kevin transferred to Riverside 2 years ago and quickly learned to navigate its social hierarchy by remaining invisible. His interaction with Sarah Chen represents a significant risk to his carefully maintained anonymity. "Can I talk to you?" Kevin asks quietly, glancing around to ensure they're not being observed. His body language suggests someone who's been systematically intimidated but has reached a breaking point where silence becomes more dangerous than speaking. "About what happened Friday and other things." Victoria recognizes opportunity. Kevin Thompson might possess information that explains the coordination she witnessed during Sarah's gymnasium attack. "What kind of other things?" she asks, keeping her voice at Sarah's gentle register while her mind catalogues Kevin's stress indicators: elevated breathing, fidgeting hands, the way he positions himself for quick retreat. "Things that happened before," Kevin says cryptically. "To students who ask too many questions or challenge the wrong people, there's a pattern, Sarah. What they did to you, it's not random." He pauses, wrestling with internal conflict between self-preservation and moral obligation. "I have evidence, video evidence, but if they find out..." Kevin's revelation confirms Victoria's suspicions about systematic harassment. Someone at Riverside Prep operates a sophisticated intimidation network that extends beyond normal teenage bullying. The implications suggest adult involvement, institutional corruption, and carefully orchestrated campaigns to silence dissent. More importantly, Kevin's offer of video evidence could provide the proof necessary to expose the entire operation. "Show me," Victoria says simply, and Kevin's expression shifts from nervous anticipation to genuine fear. He understands that sharing his evidence will make him a target for the same forces that orchestrated Sarah's gymnasium attack, but something in Sarah's changed demeanor, the confidence that wasn't there before, gives him hope that this time might be different. "Not here," Kevin whispers, checking his surroundings again. "After school. The old media center in the basement. No one uses it anymore since they built the new computer lab. 3:30. He starts to leave, then turns back with desperation in his voice. "Sarah, be careful who you trust." Some of the teachers, They know what's happening. They help coordinate it. Oin, as Kevin disappears into the crowd of students transitioning between classes, Victoria processes the implications of his warning. Institutional complicity reaches beyond student harassment into faculty involvement. The gymnasium incident wasn't just Marcus's crew acting independently. It represents part of a larger system designed to maintain social order through intimidation and violence. At exactly 3:30, Victoria descends to the basement media center, where Kevin Thompson waits with a laptop and external hard drive. His evidence collection represents months of careful documentation, hidden cameras, and personal risk that could have resulted in expulsion or worse. As Kevin opens files showing systematic harassment campaigns against multiple students, Victoria realizes the scope of Riverside's corruption extends far beyond anything she initially suspected. Kevin's laptop screen illuminates the dusty basement media center as file after file reveals Riverside Prep's systematic harassment campaign. The evidence spans 16 months and documents attacks against 6 different students who challenged the school's social hierarchy. Each video shows the same tactical coordination Victoria witnessed during Sarah's gymnasium incident: disabled surveillance, eliminated witnesses, adult supervision, mysteriously absent during critical moments. "This one happened last spring," Kevin whispers, opening a file labeled Martinez Incident, March. The footage shows a student being cornered in the same gymnasium where Sarah was attacked. Marcus's crew uses identical positioning, identical rope techniques, identical timing. Carlos Martinez questioned why the school board cancelled the scholarship expansion program. 3 days later, this happened. Victoria studies the video with tactical analysis. The harassment follows a precise playbook that requires adult coordination and institutional support. "Where's Carlos now?" she asks, though Kevin's expression already provides the answer. Students who challenge Riverside's power structure don't simply transfer. They disappear from the educational system entirely, their families relocated or silenced through economic pressure. "His father lost his job at the engineering firm," Kevin explains quietly. "Their mortgage got called in early. The family moved to Arizona within 2 weeks." He opens another file showing a female student being systematically isolated through coordinated social ostracism. Emma Walsh asked too many questions about missing fundraising money. Look what happened to her. The documentation reveals sophisticated psychological warfare designed to destroy students' reputations, academic standing, and family stability. This extends far beyond teenage bullying into organized institutional corruption. Victoria recognizes tactics her father described from counterintelligence operations: discrediting witnesses, isolating targets, creating plausible deniability for coordinated attacks. "How long have you been collecting this evidence?" Victoria asks, impressed by Kevin's methodical documentation, despite his obvious fear. Each file contains not just video footage, but detailed timelines, witness statements, and financial records showing suspicious patterns in family relocations and employment terminations. "Since they came after me freshman year," Kevin admits, "I started recording everything after my parents received anonymous threats about my scholarship." He points to a folder containing dozens of audio files, phone calls, meetings, conversations between faculty members who thought no one was listening. "Sarah, this goes all the way to the top." Kevin opens a video file that makes Victoria's blood freeze. The footage shows Principal Crawford meeting with Councilman Blackwood in the empty gymnasium after hours, discussing problem students and acceptable resolution methods. Their conversation references specific harassment incidents with clinical detachment, treating student suffering as administrative inconvenience requiring efficient solutions. "They know about Friday's incident," Kevin continues, playing audio from a phone call between Blackwood and an unidentified male voice. Blackwood's planning something bigger. He mentioned your father by name, Sarah. They know about his military background. The recording quality is poor, but certain phrases emerge clearly. Eliminate the threat. Permanent solution. Make an example. Victoria's tactical assessment shifts from reconnaissance to active threat management. If Blackwood knows about Colonel Chen's classified background, the danger extends beyond school harassment into potential violence against her family. She pulls out her phone to call her father, but Kevin grabs her wrist with surprising strength. "Wait," Kevin says urgently. "There's something else you need to see first." He opens a final video file dated yesterday, Sunday evening. The footage shows Blackwood meeting with 3 adult males in expensive suits. They discuss the Chen problem and coordinate responses that involve surveillance, intimidation, and escalated measures if necessary. The video reveals that Sarah's gymnasium attack was merely the opening move in a larger campaign designed to silence the Chen family permanently. Blackwood's resources extend far beyond local school board influence into networks of political and economic power that can destroy lives with systematic precision. Victoria realizes they're not fighting privileged teenagers, but a coordinated conspiracy involving multiple levels of institutional authority. "My father already knows," Victoria says quietly, understanding now why Colonel Chen insisted on operational security and identity switching. This isn't just about school harassment anymore. She studies Kevin's evidence collection with new appreciation for his courage. Documenting this conspiracy required months of personal risk that could have resulted in his family's destruction. Kevin nods grimly. "That's why I decided to trust you. Something changed about you after Friday. You're not the same person who got attacked in the gymnasium." His observation carries accuracy that makes Victoria realize her performance hasn't been as flawless as intended. "Sarah Chen would never have agreed to meet me down here. She'd be too scared." The confrontation happens Tuesday morning in Principal Crawford's office. Victoria sits across from the administrator who's spent 16 months orchestrating harassment campaigns against students who threaten Riverside's corrupt status quo. Crawford's expression combines professional concern with barely concealed hostility as he reviews Friday's incident report. A sanitized document that makes no mention of rope, violence, or coordinated attack. "Miss Chen," Crawford begins with practiced sympathy, "I understand you've been experiencing some social difficulties with other students. Perhaps we should discuss transfer options that might better suit your particular needs." His language carries subtle threats wrapped in educational bureaucracy. Students who challenge the system receive offers they're expected to accept without resistance. Victoria maintains Sarah's gentle demeanor while analyzing Crawford's office for surveillance equipment and escape routes. Her father's training includes tactical assessment of potentially hostile environments. "I appreciate your concern, Principal Crawford. However, I believe Riverside Prep provides excellent educational opportunities that I'd hate to lose." Something in her response makes Crawford study her more carefully. Sarah Chen has never displayed this level of confidence or subtle defiance. "Miss Chen, sometimes students misinterpret normal social interactions as something more serious than intended. Perhaps counseling might help you process Friday's misunderstanding more appropriately. The suggestion carries implications beyond academic support. Students who report harassment at Riverside often find themselves diagnosed with adjustment disorders, anxiety conditions, or behavioral problems that justify their removal from the school community. Victoria recognizes the tactic as sophisticated gaslighting designed to make victims question their own perceptions of reality. "I don't think I misunderstood anything," Victoria replies calmly. 4 students cornered me in an unsupervised gymnasium, tied rope around my wrists, and attempted to hang me from climbing equipment. That seems fairly straightforward. Her recitation of facts creates uncomfortable silence that reveals Crawford's complicity more clearly than any confession. Crawford's expression shifts from feigned concern to carefully controlled anger. Sarah Chen isn't following the script that usually results in voluntary transfer or psychological breakdown. Miss Chen, making false accusations against other students is a serious matter that could result in disciplinary action against you. Perhaps you should reconsider your version of events. The threat reveals the system's true nature. Victims who refuse to accept blame for their harassment face escalated intimidation designed to force compliance or departure. Victoria understands now why her father insisted on operational security. Riverside Prep operates as an institutional weapon designed to silence dissent through psychological violence. "I'm not making false accusations," Victoria responds with quiet determination. "I'm simply reporting what happened. Shouldn't the school investigate assault and attempted injury to ensure student safety?" Her question exposes the logical inconsistency of Crawford's position while maintaining the innocent tone expected from Sarah Chen. The office door opens without warning. Councilman Blackwood enters with the territorial confidence of someone who considers Riverside Prep his personal domain. His presence confirms Victoria's suspicions about coordinated adult involvement in student harassment campaigns. Blackwood studies her with calculating intelligence that recognizes threat potential despite her youthful appearance. "Miss Chen," Blackwood says with false warmth, "I understand you've been having difficulties adjusting to Riverside's social environment. Perhaps we can find solutions that address everyone's concerns." His language mirrors Crawford's bureaucratic threats while carrying additional authority backed by political power and economic influence. Victoria realizes this confrontation represents more than disciplinary action. Blackwood's presence indicates the conspiracy has escalated beyond school harassment into direct intimidation of her family. She maintains Sarah's posture while mentally cataloging tactical options and emergency communication protocols her father established for exactly this scenario. "I appreciate your interest in student welfare, Mr. Blackwood. However, I believe addressing assault and attempted injury should be handled through proper legal channels rather than administrative convenience." Her words carry layered meaning that makes both men exchange worried glances. Blackwood's expression hardens as he realizes Sarah Chen possesses knowledge and confidence that threaten the careful balance of power he spent years establishing. "Miss Chen, your father's military background makes him particularly susceptible to misinterpreting normal teenage interactions as something more sinister. Perhaps professional counseling might help your family process recent events more appropriately." The mention of Colonel Chen confirms that Blackwood knows about classified background information he shouldn't possess. This reveals intelligence-gathering capabilities that extend far beyond local school board authority. Victoria understands now that her family faces threats from coordinated networks with resources for surveillance, investigation, and targeted intimidation. "My father taught me to trust evidence over explanations," Victoria replies with quiet steel. "Video evidence, witness testimony, documented patterns of systematic harassment. The kind of evidence that tends to interest federal investigators when local authorities fail to protect students from institutional violence." Both men freeze. Sarah Chen shouldn't know about federal investigation protocols or possess the confidence to threaten powerful adults with legal consequences. Blackwood studies her with growing unease as he realizes his assumptions about controlling this situation might be dangerously incorrect. The federal agents arrive Thursday morning with warrants that transform Riverside Prep from prestigious institution into active crime scene. Colonel Chen's classified contacts include investigators specializing in institutional corruption and civil rights violations. Agent Rodriguez leads the operation with tactical precision that suggests months of preparation rather than spontaneous response to student complaints. Kevin Thompson's evidence collection provides the foundation for coordinated arrests that sweep through Riverside's administration like surgical strikes. Principal Crawford, Councilman Blackwood, and 5 faculty members face charges ranging from conspiracy to commit assault to civil rights violations under federal statute. The speed and coordination of law enforcement response reveals the scope of investigation that began long before Sarah's gymnasium incident. Jessica Martinez stands beside Victoria as police officers escort Marcus Blackwood and his crew from the building in handcuffs. The arrests happen during morning assembly, ensuring maximum visibility and symbolic impact. Jessica's phone captures footage that will circulate through social media within hours, documenting the fall of Riverside's corrupt hierarchy for national audiences. "I still don't understand how this happened so fast," Jessica says, watching Agent Rodriguez coordinate evidence collection from administrative offices. Last week, Sarah was just another student getting bullied. Now the entire school board is being arrested. Her confusion reflects the carefully orchestrated nature of the operation that kept most participants unaware of the broader investigation. Victoria maintains Sarah's identity while processing the satisfaction of watching systematic corruption finally face legal consequences. Months of careful planning between her father and federal investigators culminate in justice that seemed impossible when she first fled Riverside in disgrace. The arrests represent more than personal vindication. They dismantle an institutional weapon that destroyed countless students' lives. Agent Rodriguez approaches with paperwork requiring Sarah's signature as a federal witness. Her testimony will anchor prosecutions that could result in decades of prison sentences for conspiracy, civil rights violations, and systematic abuse of institutional authority. The agent's expression carries professional respect for the courage required to challenge such powerful corruption. "Miss Chen," Agent Rodriguez says formally, "your willingness to report these incidents made this investigation possible. Federal prosecutors believe we can demonstrate pattern evidence spanning multiple years and involving dozens of victims." She pauses, then adds with genuine warmth, "Your father should be proud of the young woman he raised." 6 months later, Sarah Chen, the real Sarah, stands before the Massachusetts State Board of Education to testify about institutional harassment and the federal reforms that transformed Riverside Prep into a model of transparency and student protection. Her sister Victoria sits in the audience, having officially transferred back to Riverside as the school's first student self-defense instructor. The sister's story spreads through social media networks, inspiring federal investigations into institutional harassment at private schools across New England. Their testimony contributes to legislation requiring mandatory reporting protocols, independent oversight committees, and federal monitoring of institutions with histories of systematic student abuse. Riverside Prep operates under federal supervision with new leadership, reformed policies, and a culture that prioritizes student safety over institutional reputation. Marcus Blackwood and his crew serve juvenile sentences while their parents face federal prison time for conspiracy and civil rights violations. The transformation serves as a national model for institutional accountability and student protection. Colonel Chen frames newspaper clippings documenting his daughter's courage alongside his military commendations. His classified work contributed to investigations that revealed networks of institutional corruption extending far beyond single schools into systematic abuse of educational authority. The Chen family story becomes a case study in tactical preparation, federal cooperation, and the power of evidence-based justice. In the Riverside Prep Gymnasium, where Sarah Chen once hung from climbing ropes, a memorial plaque honors students who challenged institutional injustice. The inscription reads simply, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it." The rope that once symbolized intimidation now represents the strength required to climb toward justice, no matter how high the obstacles appear.